In this tutorial we'll focus on bioaccumulation or biomagnification. Now these are big words, but again just take a moment to stop and think about what they're referring to. Again, there's that word bio, which means living thing or life. Accumulation, to accumulate something, means to build it up, to gather it up. To magnify something means to make it bigger. Alright, so bioaccumulation or biomagnification, and they mean the same thing, means the building up, in this case, of poisons as they move up through the food chain of living things. So we'll have a look at how this works in just a moment. A couple of terms that relate to this are herbicide and pesticide. This is particularly a problem. Bioaccumulation is a problem in ecosystems when you get a build-up of herbicides or pesticides in the food chain. These are poisons, chemical poisons designed by human beings to kill unwanted plants or unwanted animals. Herbicide being killing unwanted plants and pesticides for killing unwanted animals. So when these poisons build up beyond their recommended concentrations, they're capable of killing animals that they weren't designed to kill. So let's have a look at how this can actually work in the next slide. Let's focus on these couple of diagrams for a moment to see how bioaccumulation actually works. This particular phenomenon of bioaccumulation or biomagnification was first studied with a very famous poison called DDT, which was one of the first and major pesticides to be used. And nobody, when it was first used, really understood what its impact would be on ecosystems. And when it was finally discovered, it had a devastating impact on living things where it was being used. It's a very, very effective poison, DDT. So let's have a look at this idea of biomagnification or bioaccumulation. So when DDT or any poison is sprayed on plants to kill pests or unwanted plants, it's sprayed on in a concentration that's only designed to kill those particular pests. It's not sprayed on in a concentration that could kill us or kill bigger animals. So it's carefully designed to only be at a concentration that will just kill what it has to kill. And that would be fine if the chemical or the poison stayed in just the things it was meant to go into. But unfortunately this doesn't necessarily happen. So here's a classic example in an aquatic ecosystem. That's an ecosystem that involves water organisms and the things that feed on it. If DDT was sprayed in a particular area, then the concentration of DDT in the actual water itself might only be 0.000003 parts per million. ppm is parts per million. So that's a very, very tiny number of DDT molecules, 0.000003 parts per million in the water. However, a number of microscopic creatures called zooplankton drink that water or take that water into their own cells, often only just single cells. So if one zooplankton takes in a reasonable amount of water, what they discovered is when they measured DDT in the zooplankton, it had built up to a concentration of 0.04 parts per million. Unfortunately, small fish feed on the zooplankton, and one small fish will eat thousands of zooplankton. And so 0.04 parts per million of DDT in the zooplankton got concentrated or built up or accumulated, if you like, in every small fish. So every small fish had a DDT concentration of 0.5 parts per million. So you can see just going from the concentration in water to the concentration in a single small fish, you've gone from 0.000003 parts per million to 0.5 parts per million. But it gets worse. When the big fish eat the small fish, one big fish will eat many small fish. So as the many small fish go into each big fish, this accumulates or builds up the DDT even further in each big fish's body. So each big fish was measuring 2 parts per million of DDT. Then you have large hunting birds like ospreys that feed on the fish, and an osprey may feed on many large fish. And so you get the DDT in the big fish now moving into the osprey, and when they measured DDT concentrations in ospreys, it was now up to 25 parts per million. So from the concentration in the water of DDT up to the concentration in each osprey, it had gone from being harmless here, because it was in such low concentration, to being deadly up here, because it was now at 25 parts per million. So the poison had accumulated, or been magnified, if you like, as it had been consumed up through the food chain. And it was the bigger organisms at the end of the food chain that suffered most. Now, that's bad enough when it's dealing with large, beautiful animals like ospreys, but of course we are at the end of food chains as well, human beings. And this became a problem when people, not ospreys, were fishing in the Great Lakes of America and Canada and catching fish that had a build-up of toxic metal compounds in them that were the result of runoff wastes from chemical factories. And these toxic metals had built up through the food chain until human beings were fishing and eating the fish at the end, and human beings ended up being poisoned with toxic mercury and other compounds. So bioaccumulation and biomagnification was an extraordinary thing to discover, and has had huge impacts on those living things at the end of food chains. This diagram here really illustrates the same particular point.